this concert, 37th almost annual concert. This concert started back in almost annual, which leads to the two notable breaks in it. Last year, this concert did not happen due to the snowpocalypse of last year. It just was not able to. And the only other time since we've started this that Kennett was not able to do this concert was during the year that the high school was under renovations and both the auditorium and the gymnasium were being renovated at the same time. So with those exceptions, since 1976, this concert has happened. And if this is your first time with this concert, or maybe with this concert but in this format, a very brief history, because there are people in the audience who will hold me to this if I get it wrong, or if I don't mention it. It started in 1976 with what was at the time Music in Our Schools Week. Turned out that after a while, Music in Our Schools Week was very hard to schedule in 1 week. So they turned it the entire month of March in 1985 was Music in Our Schools Month. An entire month for music. Little bit side comment, hard to believe now looking back that 1976 to 1985 may have been the golden years of music education in the United States, where we actually took the time to dedicate a week or a month to music. Almost unheard of now with where things are and what we need to do with everything that schools are intended to do. So back then, we got this idea, not me, I wasn't there, but the idea was had to take the entire district, put the whole district's music program on display. The first couple concerts were, my understanding, was pretty much K to 12. They were K to 12 concerts showing off everything the district had to offer. It was a smaller district then. I came on board with the district in 1999. At that point, Music on Parade was up in the gym, and it was the middle school and high school. And that was it at that point. And it was middle school choirs, middle school orchestra, middle school band, jazz bands, and the high school equivalent of all of the performing ensembles. That was a very well-attended event. It was so well-attended that one year we may have gone over capacity of the gym and attracted the attention of some fire marshals. So we decided at that point that we had to probably reformat this again. And it is important to us to keep the idea that we have this concert that has been going on for this long and what it is. And this started 2 years ago in this format with Mr. Beach, and we decided we're going to rotate it on 3 years. The first year, because it was his last year of teaching with us too, was going to be orchestra. And he highlighted orchestras from 3rd grade through 12th grade. The second year was going to be band, and we are highlighting bands from elementary school up through high school. And tonight you're going to see the elementary group that's up here with us, mostly elementary. But that's also part of this, is the opportunity to show to the elementary school kids where they're going to go next, where they're going to wind up, and in some cases play with some of the high school musicians. That's an important thing that, as our district has grown, has become more and more difficult. So the exposure for the musicians in this room, and the exposure for the parents to see, wow, if my kids stick with this, this is where they can get to, this is what we do, this is how Kennett approaches music. So this year, it's all about band. Next year will be all about chorus. And some of you may be back again for if you have students that are in multiple ensembles. But for tonight, it's an evening of wind music. With that, Mr. Rutledge.
All right, so in front of you, we have, besides the ringers, we have the elementary band. The first time they've played together was about an hour ago. So we're ready to go, though. We're ready. We've been practicing. In front of you, you have 3 different schools, and I'm going to have them raise their hand, if they would, when we get to them. Bancroft, raise your hand. Awesome. New Garden, raise your hand. We have some fans. And then Greenwood, raise your hand. So we have a sampling of quite a few students from the different schools. Now this isn't, I couldn't bring the whole band at each school because there are so many involved. We have about 70 band members at each school. So that would be quite an undertaking to get everybody here. So what we have up here is a majority of the advanced students at those schools. So you're going to get a chance to hear what they can do. Starting off with Frere Jacques. which a lot of the kids that are in front of me here I know had played that one before, and we're dedicating this to those students that used to go through the elementary schools. And then we're doing another piece by John Kenyon called English Ballad. It's hard to believe in a few short months they're going to be heading off to the middle school, which brings me to our next part of the program. I'd like to introduce Mr. Andrew Whistler and the Kennett Middle School Band. We're going to do a quick little transition before they come up, and then we'll get started with them.
I have a tendency of rambling, so I brought a piece of paper today. Before you is the Kennett Middle School Symphonic Band. The Symphonic Band is all of the 8th grade band students. All students are enrolled in band in 8th grade. It also includes the top 25 7th grade students who qualified last year at the end of 6th grade. They can play their scales, they can really sight read, they're good at rhythms, that kind of stuff. So this is the top ensemble in the middle school. The middle school currently has about 210 students enrolled. If we brought them all, it would have been a 2-hour concert. That's what you guys are used to seeing. So this evening should be a little shorter because we have small groups. Anyway, primarily we spend a lot of time on balance, we spend a lot of time on blend, we spend a lot of time on intonation, so on and so forth. It's that next level of musicianship. What's really remarkable is seeing the growth from the students who just played with the advanced band A couple years later into the middle school, and we get this. It's pretty cool. It's kind of, it almost seems, a little magical. And then at the high school, they really go to a different level. It's wild to see the transition. So, the one thing, on a side note, the middle school is pretty excited to be performing in an actual auditorium, considering that we're used to playing on a gymnasium floor. So this could be interesting. So, I hope you enjoy it. The first piece of music that we're going to be performing is Michael Brown's arrangement of Salvation is Created. And it is based on a choral work composed by Pavel Chechnikov in 1912. It was one of the very last sacred works Chechnikov composed before he was forced to turn to secular arts by the Soviet government. Although he never heard his own composition performed, his children had the opportunity to in the years following his death. The work is a communion hymn based on a sonodal Kievan chant melody. In English, the text reads, "Salvation is made in the midst of the earth, O God, Alleluia." For our next piece of music, considered by many to be required literature for middle school, junior high band, Macbeth's Canto was commissioned by the All Japan Band Association and published in 1977. The piece features a familiar Japanese folk song in two contrasting sections. You will hear clapping, you will hear 2x4 blocks, you will hear timpani shell tapping to create a very primal sound. The opening statement is marked, joyfully with spirit. And as Mr. Rutledge said, at the end of this year, I have to get rid of most of them. So, for him it's happiness, for me it's always sadness. And I always miss when they move on. It's always a pleasure to perform in front of and play for previous parents that had middle school students, and of course the students. I miss you guys too. So, thank you, it was awesome. Here's Mr. Romano. Okay, just one. Okay, just one.
The group you see up here is the high school symphonic band, comprised mostly of 11th and 12th grade students. We have a couple sophomores up in this group as well. And sort of what Mr. Whistler said of if we put the entire high school program up here, it would be a bit of a challenge because the 50 plus in here and the 75 plus in the concert band would quickly overload this stage and quickly overload this hall. So even though we're trying to show this wonderful progression that we have from elementary to middle to high school, we had to skip a little bit here and there just to make sure that we kind of have a logistical sense of this. Our first piece is something that we are hoping that our younger parts of the audience will recognize. It is music from the movie The Incredibles. Yeah, hopefully enough people have seen this that it might be recognizable, we hope, we think. And being that it's the high school, we get to occasionally play with some little bit different toys up here. We're incorporating an electric bass on this one. We're putting a drum set in on this one. We hope you enjoy this one. I'm going to talk for a moment here if I can catch my breath, and also because I think my right rotator cuff needs a little bit of rest. We mentioned before this is the 37th incarnation of this concert. And there's a kind of a long-held tradition that I know at least one person in the audience will call me out on if I don't do this. So I better do this. For many of you here, this might be your first time attending Music on Parade, seeing what Kennett has to offer kind of from beginning to end. And we hope that you come back. For others in the audience, if you would indulge me, if you've been to 3 or more of our Music on Parades, you guys stand up. 3 or more of these? We should have a few. There should be a few. Right, there's some staff here. There might be a few high school students who've been to 3 or more, maybe not. And anybody out there, stay standing, stay standing. Anybody 5 or more? Let's crank that number up to 10. Anybody out there 10 or more of these? Wow. Okay, let's go to 15. 15 is where I tap out of this. Right, so we could keep going with this exercise. At least one person in the room who has been all 37 of these, because I know when he started teaching here. But when we used to do this in the gym, we actually were able to get up to on many times, the 20-year mark of people that have been to 20 years of these, because they had a large family that went through Kennett for any number of other reasons. Of which that family atmosphere, that inclusion, that involvement is something I want to touch on just a little bit before we start our final piece. And it's the advocacy side of things. March is Music in Our Schools Month. I leave at the end of the week to go to PMEA, Pennsylvania Music Educators Association, All-State Festival. We have a student made All-State. Amazing, from tiny little Kennett, making it to All-State Band. And, yes. But we focus on March as music. And if this is an event that you've enjoyed, if you think that Kennett does pretty well with music, tell somebody. And be positively, advocate positively for it. Oftentimes we hear everything's are getting cut, we're cutting back here. We enjoy a lot of support in Kennett for the music, for the arts, a whole lot. And if you see Dr. Tomasetti and you were at this event, just say, hey, this is a really awesome event. If you know any of the school board members, just say, awesome. We like what they're doing. If you want to write a letter to the paper, these are all the kinds of positive things and the positive PR that instead of talking about music being cut, instead of talking about arts programs being cut, we should be celebrating where music is very much alive, and it's very alive in Kennett. We see that tonight, and we see it throughout the year at many of our other concerts. So if you walk away from this event, and this is something that you enjoyed, and you think, wow, it's really cool, we saw, where our elementary kids are going to wind up, or I will tell you that the high school kids had a little bit of a transformative experience. Playing with the elementary band and listening to the middle school band, they were blown away at the level of musicianship that can be accomplished by younger students. It's out there, and we're doing it really well. And on that note also, before I ramble too much, because there's somebody in the audience that'll call me on that too, especially when I get home. We can't do what we do up here without Mr. Whistler and Mr. Rutledge. And I feel that I need to take a moment and thank them publicly here. I get to stand up here and wave my arms and make lots of fast music go by, but I can't do any of it without these two guys. And I can't think of a better team and better people that I would want to spend my career working with. So thank you. Abram's Pursuit, our final piece, and then we have a big grand finale kind of planned. Incidentally, we're totally winging the grand finale. This is the only time it's happened, the first time we rehearsed it. Abram's Pursuit is the tale from the 14th chapter of Genesis, which basically tells of Abraham's flight and leaving and starting the Nation of Islam, basically, is Israel. We're going to go with that one. Sorry. Israel. And Abram being pursued across the desert. This piece is completely unrelenting, unforgiving. No quarter will be asked and none will be given. For the musicians down there, the woodwind runs are insane. The amount of notes they play in a short amount of time, the percussion writing is rather insane. Tubas and trombones get melody. I know, right? And lots of it. And French horns have rips in it. They're supposed to have rips in it. Right. And pretty much every section gets something else. Trombones also get their rips, their growls, and glissandi. And there's a part at the end of the trombone section that's a little overzealous about sometimes. And the trumpet section is high, fast, and loud. What else do you need out of a piece of music? This is Abrams Pursuit. give us one more chance to transition here. We're going to need the house lights up, and we will give you our...
And on behalf of the Kennett band program, music department, music in the schools, all that fun stuff, thanks for coming out, folks. I hope you had a good time this evening.